Okay, I think we'll start. Um, Thank you for participating in the DesignBase demonstration. My name is Rick Weiser. I am the Vice President of Client Services for DesignBase International. I'm responsible for sales and service internationally. So if you have any questions about DesignBase, about licensing, or questions about support, please give me a call. And you can reach me at 877-889-9777, or you can email info@designbase.com. Again, thank you very much for your participation. DesignBase has just released our version 6. It came out over the weekend, and we'll be going over some of those new features in a few minutes. But what is DesignBase really? Sorry about that. DesignBase allows the multi-value developer to develop multi-value applications or convert multi-value applications directly onto the web using a browser interface. DesignBase, I believe, is the only vendor that is saying all you need is your multi-value knowledge to create complete commercial-grade web applications. You don't need Java, JavaScript, HTML, XML, SOAP, AJAX, .NET, and anything else you can think of, and anything in the future. DesignBase takes all of that technology and wraps it into our tool set. So the only thing you need to know is how to take a field, place it on a DesignBase form, and then run your business logic that you've created over 10, 20, 30 years to update your files. DesignBase takes care of the rest. So what are some of our customers doing in DesignBase? This is an application that was developed in Australia for bars and restaurants. It's live in about 50 locations right now, all touchscreen, and the entire application was developed by a multi-value developer. So the server comes in, touches what they want, presses enter, and either the receipt goes to the bar or into the kitchen for processing. First Bag is an application from Sapphire in the UK. They are First Bag is a baggage claim application that tracks bags from the time the customer drops the bag off at check-in to the time they pick it up at their destination. This application is live in multiple airlines in LAX, in the UK, and about 2 years ago went live in Australia. If you know anything about the Australian government, they control all of the airports in the country. So anytime you want to sell into an airport, you have to go through the government. DesignBase signed them about 2 years ago. Well, Sapphire signed them about 2 years ago. And now this application is live in every airport in Australia for domestic flights. And Qantas likes this application so much that they're thinking about putting it in all of their international airports also. My Payroll HR is one of the first DesignBase applications to go live. It's a hosted application. It's developed by a company in Plymouth, Massachusetts called F.W. Davidson. They maintain, this application supports about 150 150 160 companies, and about 3,000 employees. So the company comes in, signs up for the service, they enter all their employees, and then they can print their checks, they can enter in all their payroll, and all the taxes and financial information is all built for them. So this is live, like I said, in about 160 customers and is growing rapidly. Peartree sells RV and dealership software in Canada and the northern United States. They have about 70 locations that are using this application right now. These were DesignBase's first application to go live. It does everything from pre-sales to service on the back end. There is even a job shop application as part of this. All RVs, they don't never leave the site without having something done to them before it's given to the customer. So there is that job shop application, all written in DesignBase, all written by multi-value developers. DesignBase is a travel agency application. The nice thing about this application is it is multilingual and multi-currency. DesignBase takes advantage, or DesignBase takes advantage of the DesignBase glossary, which allows a developer to develop in one language, create a glossary for another language, which in turn creates, externalizes all of the terms, all of the screen labels, program messages, menu options, and externalizes all of them so that they see the language that they developed in on one side and then the language that they're converting to in another. Then a user is set a glossary, and when the user logs in, DesignBase on the fly substitutes their glossary terms for the ones that were developed by the developer. So nothing has to change in the DesignBase application to be multilingual. All you have to do is set up a glossary for the language you want to go to, and those glossaries can be infinite. You can have as many glossaries set up in DesignBase as you like. So your development could be in English, but you can have a French glossary, Spanish glossary, simple Chinese, Mandarin. You could do all of those languages without having to change any of your code or any of your forms on the back end. Famous Motorcycle Insurance is a customer of our parent company, BA Insurance Systems. For those that don't know what BA Insurance Systems is, they sell insurance software to Australia and Asia. Initially, BA Insurance Systems was a system builder house. Their application was built in System Builder and sold in System Builder. They decided about 10, 12 years ago that they did not want to be in System Builder anymore, so they tried to build a VB application, decided very quickly that the VB application wasn't where they wanted to be. So they built this web browsing tool to help them build their application. Pretty quickly into the development, they decided that they can sell this application and branched off DesignBase. So that's where we are now. All of the BA Insurance Systems customers are now on the DesignBase version of the application, and we only sell the DesignBase, or BA only sells the DesignBase version at this point. There are no more sales in System Builder. So this is one of the BA Insurance Systems customers. They asked us to do an online motorcycle quoting system. So everything, again, is designed by a multi-value developer. So the user can come in, or the customer can come in, click the insurance type. The screen grows and shrinks based on the insurance type. It is browser independent, so there is no need to be stuck on Internet Explorer. This application currently is live on their system. So they're currently quoting directly from a DesignBase application. So why are customers attracted to DesignBase? They get their application to market much quicker than they would using .NET or basically anything else. It significantly reduces the risk of failure. DesignBase does not install anything on the client PC to run a DesignBase application. So you can run your DesignBase application from anywhere in the world as long as you have access to your web server. So you can go into a business office or in a hotel, a business center, and log into your server and process your data directly from the DesignBase application. You can also develop a DesignBase application without installing any software on the client PC. It improves productivity. DesignBase, because you don't have to learn those other technologies, your multi-value developers can be reused, and now they are your web developers also. We have multi-value developers productive in DesignBase in a week or less. Saves money because you don't have to purchase any of those development kits for .NET. You don't have to train people on .NET, on Java, on JavaScript, or XML. DesignBase pulls all of that in together. The application will be best of breed and most importantly commercial grade. It significantly improves customer/user retention and sales. DesignBase has not lost a customer once they have started developing in DesignBase. Makes the most of your legacy applications. So you can reuse any code that you have created on your legacy system within DesignBase. DB support is second to none. Our support queue is usually empty. DesignBase application just simply works. The questions we get in the support queue are usually, how do I do this? Or can you send me an upgraded license? Customer testimonials. I'm not going to go through these today. I will just flip by them, but you can log on to our website, and all of these are on the website. Or if you want the PDF of all of our customer testimonials, just send me a note to info@designbase.com, and I will send you the testimonial PDF. So we'll just forward through. There's just a few of these in here. Most of them are on the website. Before I continue and show you DesignBase, do you have any questions about what I've shown so far? If you do, please send a question to the questions pad on the control panel of the webinar. Okay, let's set up the shove this thing over. Okay, seeing no questions, let's jump into DesignBase. This is the new DesignBase website. This came out over the weekend in conjunction with our version 6 release. You'll notice that it is completely rewritten. There are mouse over events that are related to these. So you can see if I mouse over the cross-browser compliance, you'll see that it shows all of the browsers that are now supported with DesignBase. With the new release 6, the major upgrade to this is that you can develop in IE and deploy in any of these browsers. So you can develop a design-based application and use it in Firefox, in Chrome. You can use the same application on an iPad, on a Google phone, or any other browser that supports these platforms. Features in 6, like I said, cross-browser compliance, a predictive index. It is basically a search engine that looks very similar to a Google/Bing interface that can be attached to any input field. So the user can start typing, and a predictive index will start popping up alongside, suggesting options for that user. We have Express modifications that are installed also. Express is our report designer that was specifically designed for the end user to create ad hoc reports. We've created activity logging based on user activity, and on our on-form reports, we now have mouse over events, section controls, and a bunch of other things. I'm not going to go into all of those, but you can see those features right on the website. You can also view the release notes. If you go to the features of DesignBase, this shows all of the specific features in DesignBase: rapid deployment, zero deployment, high performance, commercial grade functionality, tightly coupled with the database and the I/O. Has designers for a forms designer and a report designer. A lot of security built into DesignBase. We have an entity-based model, and you also have a function-based model on a form, and express reporting. And oh, by the way, DesignBase, the new DesignBase site was built entirely in DesignBase by multi-value developers. So our site now is completely DesignBase built. You can tab through the news and the overviews. Some of the testimonials are here. Some of the samples are here also of what we've talked about today. More importantly is the test drive. What DesignBase has decided to do, as opposed to what we've done in the past, we've allowed people to download a 60-day eval. We still do that, but because it's a download, you have to go through the installation process, and sometimes depending on the platform, that could be a little bit tedious. So what we've decided to do is create an application that you can use and play with in DesignBase to see how DesignBase works. So that's what this customer maintenance is. It's an application built in DesignBase using multi-value data to display data in any browser, any of the browsers that we support. So the first thing it looks for is it has a search box on it. So if the user doesn't know the name of a client, they can simply start typing. And DesignBase will display a predictive index as they start typing. So then the user can then simply click on the one that they want, and it will pop it into the application. You can also use our search process. The search process brings up a list of all of the clients in this case, and allows you to start paging through those. So you don't have to take your hands off the keyboard. All you have to do is hit the page up and page down buttons, and it'll forward through the list. Once you find the one that you want, you can simply click on it, and you'll notice that now new in the DesignBase 6 environment, you have hover over events on each of the lines. So you don't have to be on a specific cell to click on it. You can click on any one of these, and it will populate back to the form. So you can go previous and next. You can go to a specific page. If you don't know what if the list is too long, it's 14 pages. You don't really want to scroll through all 14 pages. So you can come down and refine that search. Let's say I want things that have AR in its name, and then click Refinement. So it went down from 14 pages to 3 pages. Now this is a destructive refinement, which means the list it had in the beginning is no longer there. And it removes that list, and now you have a new list of 3 pages. If you want to see a new list again, you have to come up and search again. If you want to see the entire one. So you can keep on typing and press Refine, and DesignBase is going to flow with me. You see the items that it came up with, and then I simply click on the one that I want, and it'll populate into my form. Again, you have the ability to tab through, make changes, click on the Submit button, C00185 I think it was. Yes. Let's get rid of that. Tab through it. We also have the ability to populate a pull-down box so that you can generate this pull-down on the fly, and it without any code related, without building any code, you can have populated pull-downs. Multi-value lists, you can, these multi-value lists allow you to add and remove from the list. So I can delete a row by clicking the X. I can insert a row. I can add a row to the end. If I hit Tab here, it'll insert another row and go from there. So if I hit X there, it removes that line. I also have built into this a sales file. So there's a DB client sales file that stores the sales for this client. So these sales, year to date, last year, and month to date, if I click on the sales button, the sales hyperlink, you will see a graphic representation to those sales. These graphs are server-side built, which means when they're requested by the user, it's built on the fly by the server and sent to the user as an image. So the data is not sent, just the image. DesignBase is looking at developing Flash widgets that will allow you to interact with the graphs and charts, and also use gauges, so that you'll be able to move gauges, set low and high ranges, and use those gauges in your application in, say, a dashboard type operation. You can also see, if we click on the transactions, what makes up those sales. This is an on-form report, which means I can click on any of the column headings. Oh, it's not active in there. But I would be able to click on any of the column headings and resort those reports. Also, we have a customer listing. So this is a report. Oh, sorry about that. Let's get rid of that. This is a report that's built in DesignBase for these customers. I'm just going to run the report, and it'll run it to the screen as in a page control. So you see we have 8 pages here. I can go forward and backward through the list. I can search for everything that has AR in its name, and it will highlight those items. I can go to search next, and it'll go to the next page of those items. You'll notice that there are subtotals for each breakpoint for the account manager. And if I keep going on, there's a breakpoint for Andrew Morris. If I go to the end, there's a grand total. I also have functions that I can do. I can convert this to a PDF, which I'm not going to do right now. It takes a couple seconds to build it. Convert it to a PDF, then I can save it, put it anywhere I want. I can email the report back to myself. I can also store the report in an electronic cabinet so that the cabinets are multi-value files. And within a cabinet is a drawer. So a user has access to a cabinet and a drawer within a cabinet. So these reports don't have to be printed. They can be saved in a drawer and kept forever if you like, or purged in a certain number of days. And I'll show you a little bit more about that in a little bit. You can also send this report to Excel, which I'm not going to do right now. I'll get back into that a little later. But the nice thing about this, because we're doing it this way, we also have code examples. So if you get stuck, you can come in here, and if you want to see how we did everything on this website, you can come into the code examples and go through and see how we did the predictive index, let's say. So right now it's loading that predictive index. So here's all the code that's required to show how we created that that predictive index on that form. Let's go back to home. If you want to go through and download DesignBase, you can go to the support page. If you've never logged into DesignBase before, you'll have to create a membership key by filling in all of the information and clicking proceed. And then it will take you to our download page. You'll be able to download any of the multi-value platforms. DesignBase supports all of the major platforms, including the U2s, TigerLogic, which is D3, and soon to be MVBase, QM, Cache, JBase, OpenInsight, Onware. I think I got all of them. So, are there any questions about how we did the website? Okay, let's go in and drop that out, and let's go in and I'll show you how we build some of this stuff. So this is the DesignBase developer. This is the DesignBase developer. It allows you to do anything within DesignBase. DesignBase was built within itself. So anything you see in the DesignBase development application, you can reuse or recreate in your own application. Everything was built in PicBasic so that you can, again, reproduce anything that DesignBase has done in your own application. You start by defining files. Let's clear that. You put your file name in, and come on, hit the wrong button. Put your file name in, the description, and just hit the submit button if it already exists, and that tells DesignBase that that file is now ready to be imported into DesignBase. Not really imported, but set up in DesignBase. You then go to your field properties and define all the fields in that file. So you can enter them one at a time, or you can click Load Dictionaries. And what DesignBase will do is go out to your dictionary and pull in all your raw data elements and save them in the DesignBase application. They are saved in a file called DBI prop. So it is a multi-value file, multi-value data that it is saving. Once they're loaded, I'm just going to click on List All Field Properties, and I'm going to bring up client name, so that this is one of the fields in DesignBase. The screen label, that's the label that will be added to the form when the field is added to a form, when it's added to a report, when it's added to a multi-value heading, and this is the express heading, and I'll explain a little bit about express a little later. You have the ability to make the field multi-valued, sub-valued, or a work variable. Work variables are, by default non-written variables. They don't, DesignBase doesn't write them out by themselves, but they're used for calculation purposes. The attribute number of that field, the multi-value number and sub-value number. So DesignBase has the capability of displaying positional multi-values and positional sub-values. So if you have a string of attributes, a string of multi-values going across an attribute that are not related, you can actually come into DesignBase and create a field that pulls out attribute 1 multi-value 3 as a regular field. You can place that on the form. When DesignBase reads the record, it will display 1, 3 in that field, or the data that's in 1, 3. When it updates, it's going to take the data that's in that field and put it right back into 1, 3. The field type, which is alphanumeric, numeric, date, and time. Numeric has a number of decimal places, but all numerics, dates, and times, DesignBase handles the ICONB and OCONB to and from the database, so you don't have to worry about doing your own conversions. DesignBase handles those. Also, simple validations, numerics, dates, and times, are handled on the browser. So if you type in an ABC in a numeric field, the browser will handle telling the user that it's a non-numeric data. So it doesn't have to do a round trip back to the server for that. And the same thing for dates and times. So it'll validate a real date and validate a real time. Field length in pixels, that comes from the dictionary. Group name, if you have a multi-value group, you want to make sure that you put that group name in here. It will pull that group name from the dictionary if you're using it. The only other thing I want to discuss here is help text. Anywhere in the DesignBase development account, if you press F1, you get pop-up context-sensitive help. Well, that's just, you have the same options with your fields. If you put text into this help field, when a user is on that field, they can press F1 and they will get context-sensitive help. Any questions about the field properties or files before I move on to the Forms Designer and we start creating a form? Okay, good. Feel free to ask me questions at any time, and I will answer them as I go. So let's go into the Forms Designer now. DesignBase does not save any forms to the web server. All forms are saved in your multi-value database. So when you save a form, when you back up your database, you're also backing up your web forms and your web environment. The only thing needs to be saved on the web server are images. And those really don't have to be saved on the web server as long as you can point to them from somewhere else. As long as the web server has access to images that are on another server, you can set that up. So there's really a very small footprint that DesignBase places on the web server. So to build a form, you go into the file, the main file that form is based on, in this case DB client. And I'm going to give it a form name, demo 33 we'll say. So now what DesignBase is doing, because it saves this file, this form in a multi-value file called DBI forms, it needs an ID. So the ID is file name asterisk form name. So that's how it's saving that back to the DBI forms file. The description, client demo, a full description. This is a programmer's description of what this form is doing. The field width and field depth, we are now, it defaults to 1,000 by 1,000. If you can always come back into here and change this, but the width is 1,000 pixels wide by 1,000 pixels deep. Style group, DesignBase comes with 3 style groups, DBI, DBI Web, and DBI REP for reports. You can take those and copy those to a different name and use them. What these are cascading style sheets. So it allows your form, all of your forms in your application to look the same in its colors and fonts and font sizes. So these are all built in the style groups and the style definitions. So you never have to get to the CSS level to create a cascading style sheet. You can do it directly from the DesignBase application. I'm going to select Web 61. I think this form might be already used. Let's try this again. DB client Web 77. Oops. Demo 77. There we go. Oops. Do client demo 1000 by 1000. Use DBI Web 61. Okay, that's all I need to start building my form. Is this piece right here. I can now click on this designer button or this designer button here to then go into the designer. And you'll see now that the designer has changed. We have different types of menus up on the top, menu options up on the top, and we have a grid on in the work area. So each of these little boxes are 10 pixels wide by 10 pixels deep. These bigger boxes are 50 by 50 pixels, and this is my 1,000 pixel mark on my width and my 1,000 pixel mark on my depth. So now we can start adding fields to this form. I'm going to go into Fast Add, and now it's prompting me for, it's assuming the file name that I want to add the fields from is DB Client. I can add fields from any file that I have access to in DesignBase, but I'll just stick with DB Client for now. I will change that up in a little bit. So now I want to add the client code to my form. So I can start typing COD. Now DesignBase is using the predictive index to come up and say, okay, which of these fields do you want to add? So it's suggesting the fields when I start typing. I'm going to say client code because that is attribute 0 of the file or the ID. So now it's prompting me for field name, field type. DesignBase has multiple field types. Input field including the screen label, input field without the screen label, multi-value input and output, output fields including the screen label, just a plain output field, text fields, buttons, checkboxes, an on-form report, which is a static grid of data, row and column delimited, that allows you to click any cell within that on-form report. That grid can be clickable and used as a dashboard to go to other places in your application or pop up modal forms to display more detailed information about that cell. Clickable images, graphs, radio buttons, and CAPTCHA. For those that don't know what a CAPTCHA is, I'm sure you've been on websites where you enter some data and then there's a code that's randomly generated that you have to enter to verify that you are not a spammer trying to get into that website. Well, DesignBase has that capability also with the CAPTCHA. So it will create that randomly generated number and make sure that it matches when you add that field. I'm going to stick with the input field, and I'll click on Add the Field to the Form. And then I will click in one of the boxes to where I want the field to be placed. So when I click in that second box, it will snap the text label and the text box onto the form. Let's go back into Fast. And let's say I want to add name. So I want client name. Now instead of clicking Add and coming back into here, I'm going to click Add the field to the multi-add list. When I do that, it'll add this down here and then allow me to start typing again. So I can say, okay, well, I want name, I want street address, so I'll take this street address. You see it's multi-valued, okay, and you'll just remember that when I add it to the form. So I'll add that to the list, and let's say I'm just going to type in DBC and get everything that begins with DBC. Now, I also want street address, so I want, I want suburb. So instead of clicking on suburb and then clicking this add field, I'm going to control click on it, and it'll go right into that list. So now I want to put state in here. I'll control click on that. I want to put zip code. It's not zip, it's postal code. Post. Oh, P code, sorry. I'll add that to the list. State, postal code, and we'll add country. Okay, so now I've got 5 or 6 items that I've added. So now I can click on the add button and place that right there. Okay, so now I'm using the same form and I've added these fields without really adding anything, without doing any programming to get these fields added to the form. When I click on save, it takes this form and its properties and saves it into the DBI forms file. So now I want to test this form. So I can simply click on test mode on and start typing. Now what I haven't done is told DesignBase what to do with this client code once the user enters it. So I'll turn the test mode off. And I'll click on the client code. And you'll notice that the client code changes from white to blue, signifying that that's the item that that's the active item. So if we look down at the bottom, we have client. You notice that we have some information on the bottom line. The form that we're developing, the field that is highlighted, and and the row, column, and some other information about that field. Well, now I need to add a read onto that client code, so I'll go into properties. So it brings up the properties of that field on this form. So you can see it's coming from DB client, it's DBC client code, it's attribute 0, it's at these positions, and it's not multi-valued. So now if I come down to this read group, so I want to say after the user enters in some text in this field and presses the tab key, I want to read the client file for that record. So every read within DesignBase has to have a unique read group. So I'm going to start with read group 1. Read steps are used for multi-part keys. I'm not going to get into that, but you can very quickly, you can have multiple keys, multiple fields on your form that make up a key to a record that you want to read. So you could set up key steps 1, 2, and 3 for each of those fields. When they're all entered, DesignBase will then put them together and read the record. You can put a prefix on the key, a delimiter for multi-part keys, and now I have the ability to read this record into 100 different common block variables. DB record, DB other record 1 through 99. So let's go into DB record. I'm going to read it into DB record. I'm going to say read that from the DB client, and I'm going to lock it where the record must exist. So basically what we're doing is saying read you DB record from client, comma, the ID, DB client code. So I'm doing, I can run a process before the read and a process after the read. So those are subroutines. So I can run a subroutine before the read. Maybe I need to do some pre-processing. I can run a subroutine after the read. so that maybe I build some work variables after it reads the record, read other records, do some indexing or whatever. So now I'm going to click on Submit, and I will save it and turn the test mode on. And now when I put some garbage in the client code, you'll see it comes back and says record must exist. Okay, because it's an invalid record. C00185 was the item that we were looking at before, and it populates it and brings it up. Okay, so it reads it and displays the data. We have not done any pick programming yet. All of this is done within DesignBase and handled as a parameter file. So when the user calls up the form, it's sent to them, it's built on the fly and sent back to them. Any questions about what I've done so far? Okay. Let's turn the test mode off. Now you notice down here that country came up as a lookup box or a pull down. Let's look and see what's causing that. In this field, it says look up use DB country as its lookup. So when the form is built, DesignBase will go out, select DB country, and display all of the fields that it comes up, all of the records it comes up with in a pull down. If I were to take this out, submit this, and run the form again, whoops. Oh, because it's on the, did I submit it? I think it's because it's on the record itself. Yeah. Save. I would have to take it off of the field properties itself, which is right here. Take that off as the default. Save that. Save and exit. To rebuild my fields, then I can go in here, properties, take this off, submit it, and now it looks like a regular text field. So C00100, you see now it says United States, and the user can then enter data in there. So turn the test mode off, go back into those properties, and add DB country, submit it. Now it becomes a pull down, and my pull downs are there. That's all that's needed. Any questions about what I've done so far? Okay, let's add a selection process. So if the user does not know how to build, what the ID is, we have to have some kind of way for them to search the database. So I'm going to remove this label by going into delete field, and I'm going to add a search label. So instead of using a input field, I'm going to use a button. So now I've got some predefined buttons here. One of them is a search button. So I'm just going to click on that search button because it's already set up. In its text field, I'm going to say client code, and that's fine. The process after is now going to be DB client, and I will explain this in a couple seconds. DB search 1. The display class. If this were left blank, it would display as a regular button. But I'm telling it that I want it to be a search label so that it displays as a hyperlink. So the first part, before the comma, is the normal, how the hyperlink looks normally. The second part, after the comma, is how it looks when you hover over. so that it'll give you a look like this. So that in this add button, being off of it gives you the normal class. Being on top of it gives you like the hover effect. Now, when I return after the user selects something from the list, when a user selects something from the list that was selected, where do I want to place this selected item? And that's going to go to dbc.client code. So when a user selects one of the things from the list, it's going to place it into DBC client code. So I'll add that and place that right there. And let's save this and turn the test mode on. So now I don't know what the name is, so I will click on the hyperlink, and you can see that the color changes when I hover over it. So now it's displaying a list, and this is the same list that we saw on the website. Okay, but I'm not on the website. I'm on my local PC. So the data may be a little bit differently, may display a little differently. Okay, so now I have the ability to sort this any way I want. So right now I can sort this by client name if I like, and by just clicking on the column heading, and you see it's sorted it by client name. I could sort it by account manager, by phone number, and I could just go over and say city and town, and so forth. I can select a row. I can page up and page down. If I don't want to take my hands off the keyboard, I can just say press a 7 and enter, and it will put this field and send it back to the form. Again, you can do enter an account name, a client name, and press the refine, and it'll bring that list down. Okay, and then we can pick the one that we want, and it'll throw it into the database. Okay, building a selection process is very simple. I'm just going to go to another tab. So I have 3 tabs in DesignBase. DesignBase, any user can have an infinite number of DesignBase sessions open as they like, and only take up one DesignBase license, okay, coming from one IP address. So DesignBase allows the user to do that, and they are handled as separate sessions. So that's how I can create multiple development environments and only take up one development license. Okay, let's go into the selection process, and we'll look at the client and search one. I think it was search one, wasn't it? Yep. Okay, so what this is saying is select DB client with the client name equal to whatever's in brackets and entered in entry point 1. If we come back over here and look at this, I'm sorry, let's go back here and just run a test to run this as we saw it in the previous. You see we have 2 fields that we can enter on. So I can say AR in the client name and click the search, and it will populate, it'll make that selection. Well, that's what this is doing. This is saying entry point 1, which is that first entry, we're saying is defined down here in these entry points as client name. And then I'm saying and with suburb equal to whatever's entered in entry point 2. And entry point 2 is down here as the suburb. So this, along with this, sets up the inputs on the top. Then you give it the display names that you want, the fields that you want to display, and then you tell it, okay, the page, whether you want page number turned on, auto select of a single item. If only one item comes up in that selection, this will automatically select it and send it back to the data, back to the form. Do you want to auto load? You notice that as soon as the form came up, all the records were listed there. If you take this off, which I recommend for large databases, if you have a 1,000,000 record database, you don't want it selecting the entire file unless at the time it loads. You want the user to enter in some selection criteria. So that the test would look like this. Whoops, I got to refresh when I save that. Let's just refresh this real quick. Go to selection process, client, search one, test the search, and now you see I'm not displaying anything until I actually click the search button. So I can say AR search, and now I get my search process. The form width, depth, and width. So that's how we build a selection process. Any questions about selection processes? Okay. Clear that. Go back to the form. Okay, so now let's take a look. We've done the selection process. Let's take a look at adding a second read to the form. So I'll turn this test mode off. And I will add let's go back into the properties of the client code. I have a file out there called DB Client Sales. The sales file, the ID for the sales file, is the client code. So when the client code reads the client file, I can also read the DB Client Sales. So I'm going to the properties. I have my multi-value grid here for my read group. I can add another read. So this is going to be read group 2 because I've already used read group 1. I'm going to read this into DB Other Record 2, and I'm going to read it from DB Client Sales. I don't really care about the record lock or making sure that it exists. If it doesn't exist, it's just going to be null. So I'll submit that. So now I've got my read on my client sales file. I can go and add fields from the client sales. Client sales, DBS. I will add, oops, let's change this to an output field only because we don't want really the user to be able to change this data. So we'll go to DBS again. And we'll select, month to date, year to date, and last year's sales. I'm control clicking on those three to add them to this list. Add it, and we'll place those over here somewhere. Okay, so now I've got 3 fields as output only fields. Save it, turn the test mode on, C00100, and there they are. So as soon as I pressed tab on the client code, DesignBase read the client file and then read the client sales and displayed both pieces of data, both records. Any questions about that? Okay, so let's add a multi-value. I have a multi-value list. There's a multi-value group in here. Go into DB Client, list all field properties, and if I scroll down, you'll notice attributes 11 through 14 are multi-valued, and they're given a group name of contact. Okay, so that's my contact groups. Let's go back here. And now I'll go back into FAST, and I will add multi-value input contact. Oops, I'm in sales. DB client. Contact. So now I've got my contact. I'll add that. So multi-value input. Add it to my form. Place it right there. So now you see it looks a little different. I've got the plus sign to lets me add a greater than sign to insert, and an X that lets me delete. So now I will add another one from the contact group for phone. Add that. Now if I click within 15 pixels, it will add this field to this group. If I were to click down here somewhere, it would add a second group to my form. So I click there. Now I've added my phone. I will add contact email, add it to the form, click within 15 pixels. There we go. Now you notice that it's a little bit too small here. It's only going to display one row at a time. So to change that, I'll go into multi-values up on the top, and you see I have my group called contact. Names it the same as the group in the field properties. You can see it's 50 pixels, going 5 boxes down. So I can change this to 150. Do I want to allow adds and deletes? Do I want to, I'm sorry, adds and inserts? Do I want to allow deletes? I can allow them, not allow them, or allow them with a dialog. So it'll prompt, when they click the X, it'll prompt for, are you sure you want to delete this row? I can run a subroutine before the add process, before the insert, before the delete, and a post action after each one of those are completed. Hit the submit button, and now you can see the group has grown. Save that, turn the test mode on, C00100, and now you see I have my multi-value list. Again, I haven't done any coding yet to get this form to display, and that's including multi-values, second reads, pull-down boxes, search boxes. All of that is done without any coding. So again, I can insert, I can delete, I can add to the bottom. That's multi-values. Any questions about that? Okay. Okay, so now maybe I want to add a couple buttons. So we'll go back into the add. I can select button again, but I have buttons here that I've already created. So I'm going to click on the button, on the submit button. You'll notice here that it uses a button class of button 52 tick, which will look like this button right here, and a button 52 tick hover. There are about 10 buttons that are predefined. You can, of course, copy these buttons to another name and create your own buttons. So after the submit button is clicked, where do I want process focus to go after it's clicked? DBC client code. So after the user clicks on the submit button, the record is written, I want focus to go back to the client code. I will add, let's do a Control A, Control C. Let's put this in the list, and let's create a clear button and add it to the list. And let's create a delete button. Add that to the list. Click on add. And there's my 3 buttons. Now DesignBase doesn't have click and drag, but we do have click and click where you want it to be. So click to highlight it and click where you want it to be. And it'll push those items over. Okay, so now I have to tell DesignBase what to do with these buttons. And that's up and updating. So here's my update procedure. I can write any of the records that are on my form in a write and release, so it releases the block. Write no release, delete the record. I can run a subroutine before the update. Maybe I want to check for validation, make sure that data is validated between the fields. I can run a subroutine after my update. Maybe I want to update other indices or update other records. Which button am I using for the update, which is b.submit. Do I want to override the update? By default, DesignBase will update the record for you. If you decide that you want to use your own business logic to update the record, you simply say that you want to override this. So I don't want DesignBase to write the record, but DesignBase will then expect you to run a subroutine in the after update process. That subroutine can then call your business logic that you created over X number of years to update your records. Do I want a confirmation? Do you want it to come back before it writes the record and say, are you sure you want to write this record? We normally don't do that on writes, but we do it on deletes. Do I want to null the record after the write, which basically clears the form? We also have a delete button on here, and both of these are the same. So run a subroutine before it does the update. Make sure that the user is allowed to delete that record. Maybe you want to run a subroutine that runs your business logic. So you can run that subroutine there also by overriding it. And we do want to confirm on that. And which button am I clearing the form from? So now I can save it, turn the test mode on, C00100. Okay, now you see I have some data here. Let's just get rid of that. Submit it, C00100. That works. So the update works. Put some changes in there, clear it, C00100. The changes are there. Delete the record. Remember I said with a dialog box, so I want a confirmation. Do you want to delete this? Yes, no. I'm going to say no, because I don't want to delete that. Okay, that's basically DesignBase, or the DesignBase Forms Designer. There are a couple other things I want to show you, but that's the DesignBase Designer, the Forms Designer. Are there any questions about the forms and how I built them? No? Okay, so let's move on. I'm going to turn the test mode off here. I'm going to exit. And I'm going to go through a couple of other things from within DesignBase. One of the things that's important to DesignBase is Express. Express is an ad hoc reporting tool specifically designed for the end user to build ad hoc reports on the fly. So what the end user will do is click on Express. You could take that link for Express and place it on a user's menu. Now, the only thing the developer has to do is set up the which files you're going to give access to the user for Express and which fields are available to the user in Express from that file. So these are the files that are available to Express. I'm just going to click on the client file, and you'll see it displayed the fields that are available to me to add to the form. So now all the user has to do is click on the field that they want to add to the form, and it'll display that field in this work area. So I've got client code, I've got client name, maybe I'll put an email address there, and maybe a zip code. Let's take the zip code off. Oh, city and town. Okay, that's fine. So now I've got a couple fields here. I'm going to click on Produce. So now DesignBase starts building this record, building the report. Okay, so now I've got the contact emails. You see they're multi-valued, so it's going to populate down the multi-value fields. It's got client code, it's got the real name, the zip code, and the town. So let's, we can forward through this, go back, go to the end. Oh, you notice the zip code is total. DesignBase will total all numeric fields automatically. So you basically have to tell DesignBase to not total that field. So the way we do that is we click on the heading for zip code. And you notice it gives us a couple things we can do. I can change the column heading, I can change the width, I can change the justification, but more importantly here, I can click off total this column. So now the total column came off. When I produce it again and go to the end, come on, and go to the end, you see that I no longer have a grand total for zip code. Okay, let's take a couple of these items off. So I want city and town to be removed. I want zip code to be gone. Where's my zip code? There it is. And contact email is gone. Okay, so you notice now that I have client sales as a link, as a file link. Client sales is linked to the DB client file via the client code. So that because the code is the same, the client code is the same in both files, I have set up a link between the two. Now to do that is very simple. If we go to the field properties of the client code, DBC client code, and scroll down, here's the express reporting definitions. I'm saying that the client code is also the link, the key to the DB client sales file. So now that gives me this linkage. No programming required. That gives me this linkage. So now I'm displaying to the user all the fields from that file. So all the user has to do is say, okay, I want last year's sales, I want month-to-date sales, I want year-to-date sales. And DesignBase works out how to get that data from the files and display the data directly to the user. The user doesn't need to know how to get that data. Same with executive. Account manager is linked to the executive file is linked to the account manager, to the DB client file via the account manager. The account manager is the ID for the executive file. So I can display the name of the executive on the form also. So each client has an executive that's related to them. So now maybe I want to sort by this executive and move the executive to the front of the list. So if I click on client name, you see the executive's down on the bottom and it's highlighted. So I can, when I click on the top, it moves it up. So now let's say I want to sort by executive, and so it gives me my first sort. I can change the direction. Right now it's ascending. If I click on it, it'll be descending. Click on it again, it's back to ascending. Great. Do I want to break on this, on the executive's name? Yeah, I do. So when I click on it, it says break yes. If I click on it again, it's a page break. Click again, it takes it off. So I want a page break, and maybe I want to sort this in descending year-to-date dollars. So I see the highest dollars first. So I'll sort, my second sort within the executive is by year-to-date dollars, and I will change this to be descending, and I don't want to break on it. Okay, so let's submit that. So you notice now that it's sorted by the account manager and the highest dollars. Now this is only showing 10 records. If I want to show more than 10, I just simply come up here and I can show the first 50, first 150, 100, 150, and 200. So if I click on 50, it'll give me a little bit more representation of my data. So if I click on Produce Now, it's going to take a couple seconds longer. But now I have a list sorted by account manager, and if I scroll across, if I go to the next page, You see it breaks on the account manager, automatically totals all numeric columns, so I get a subtotal. There's the next account manager, and so forth. If I go to the end, it automatically grand totals all of them. Okay, let's do one more thing. You notice that the account manager was listed on every record. So if I only want to show it on the first record and then the page break, I simply click on the heading and say suppress repetition. So now I only get it once. Come on. Only get it once. And when I produce it, it will only show it on the first record of the break, and in the break totals. Okay. The only thing I really wanted to show you while I'm still on this page control is the export to Excel. So if I click on, oh, there's something else, but if I click on Excel, and there's probably a message somewhere. Oh, it's downloading it. Come on. I don't know why this is taking so long. Okay. There we go. That was strange. Anyway, that was Excel doing something in the background. You notice that it shows every field that we have on the form, but it also shows every account manager, and that's done purposely. Even though we suppressed the account manager, when you're moving it to Excel, we have to show that again, because if you then go into Excel and sort by this column, you're going to lose the account managers if we don't include it on every row. So that's Excel. We also have the ability to store the report permanently. So we already went over this. You can print it, print preview it, you can convert it to a PDF, you can email it back to yourself. You can store this report permanently. To store it permanently, what that will do is it will prompt me for a cabinet. So I can say, okay, general reporting cabinet, webinar reports. So these are my drawers that are available to me within the cabinet. So I'm putting it in this cabinet, in the general reporting, and in the drawer web reports, webinar reports. I can also create another drawer if I wanted to. Now I give this a title, client sales report. I can give access to me, only me, or any other group that I have access to. I can purge it after a specific date or number of days. Whichever comes first is when it'll get purged. Or I don't have to do that at all, and I can store it permanently. So I'll submit that, and now it's saved it to the cabinet. We'll get to the cabinets in a little bit. Okay, let's kill that. The next thing, I've been clicking on produce, and you'll notice that I've been getting a message that says you don't have any selection criteria on this file. Are you sure you want to build this report on the entire database? If you have a 1,000,000 record database, it will take a while to build this report. So basically it's asking the user, are you sure you want to build it on the entire report? You have the ability to use selection criteria. If I wanted to, I can click on a column, and let's say I clicked on the name. So now I have my selection criteria down here. Let's say this was a date field. I can say with date greater than 12, oops, 1/1, 12, and less than 12/31, 12. Okay, so that the selection will build against that selection criteria. And once you have it in there, you'll notice that there's an asterisk now on the name column. Now, it's not, that selection is only going to be affected when you click the produce button. It's not going to have any effect on the temporary data in the work area. Let's go back there and remove these, because that won't make sense. I won't get anything in my report. So I've been clicking on produce. I can also click, once I have this all done, I can click on summary. And that will build the report in a summary mode only, sort of like a detail suppress. Okay, I do have a question here. Can you open Office Calc? Can Open Office Calc be defined as an alternative to Excel? Pete, I have no idea. This opens up a CSV. If you have, I believe if you have Open Office defined for the default CSV, it may just open that. I'm not 100% sure. I would have to check that out for you. That's a minor detail. I'm sure if it doesn't, we can work it out so that it does. A couple other things. I can save this template, not the data, but the template that I built. I can save it for use later. So I can say client sales report. I can give access to only me or give it to everybody in my group. Okay? So these are the reports that are just for me, and these are the reports that are available within the group. So anybody in the group has made group assignments for saved templates. They'll be down here. So if I submit that, oh, we already have one. Okay, so let's clear this. Yes, and open a saved one. There's my saved one, and you'll see that it's all there again. Okay, any questions about Express? Okay, let's go back to Home and go back into Express, and let's look at cabinets. Okay, so now you can take cabinets and you can put that on a user menu also. And remember I said every user has a temporary cabinet, so you can see that I have a temporary cabinet. I have one report in there, and that's the one that we just, oh sorry, I created it the other day. And I also have webinar reports. Okay, so here's two reports. I created one yesterday and one today. So if I click on this sales report, the one that we just saved, it'll bring it up exactly the way it was. So now I have the same options. I can print it, I can print preview it, convert it to PDF, email it back to myself, delete the report. I can also send it to Excel. So it's the exact same report saved in an electronic cabinet. So these are PIC files that are, each cabinet is a PIC file. So when you back up your database, you're also backing up your cabinets and your reports. So I can have a separate cabinet for month end, one for quarter end, one for year end. Any DesignBase report can be sent directly to a cabinet. So you can have an end of day process or an end of month process that runs in the background, and if it is a DesignBase report that it creates, that report, instead of getting printed, can go directly to a cabinet and a drawer within a cabinet. Also, if as a user, if you're creating a very large report, let's say the report takes 15 or 20 minutes to generate, I can kick off the report, start another session, come into cabinets, and as soon as the first 5 pages are completed on that report, my percentage will go up. And you can see number of pages. The percentages will start rising. Once I have at least 5 pages generated, I can click on the report and see those pages as they're generated. So I can look at my report even though the report has not been completed. So I can look at that while it's in process. I can select the report and click on Print Selected, and it'll run that directly to a Windows printer. I can click on all of them, and when I click on Print Selected, it will combine the 2 reports and print the reports as one print job. I can email them back to myself, and deletions happen in the when you bring up the report itself. So that is Express and Cabinets. Are there any questions? Okay. So let's go back home here. That's pretty much everything I had. Are there any questions about DesignBase that I can answer? I will stay on the line for a few minutes, so please give me a call and let me know if you have any. I'm sorry. I will stay on the line for a couple minutes. Send me a question, and I will be more than willing to answer for you. If you missed anything, I am recording this webinar, and I'm going to place it on the DesignBase YouTube channel. So if you just go onto YouTube and search for DesignBase, you will see all of our webinars on the channel. So there's some training webinars. This webinar will be on there also. So if you want to show it to somebody else, please feel free to go on and look at it and display it to your whoever you want to show it. Or if you want a private webinar, a private demo, please feel free to email me at info@designbase.com or rick@designbase.com, and I will be more than happy to redo this webinar or redo this demo specifically for you. I do have another question. Any plans for a more powerful reporting tool like Informer? Yes, there is actually a report designer that I did not show today, but it is a full report designer that is developer oriented, similar to the forms designer. You place fields on the form. You can do large reports. You can do statements. You can do forms. You can do all kinds of stuff in the report designer. So it's a very powerful report designer that allows you to do that kind of information. I'm sorry. That allows you to do all of that. So the answer to your question is yes, it's already there. I just did not do that. There is a webinar actually that is on the website that goes over an intro to Report Designer. So have a look at that. It's very informative. There's also going to be an advanced Report Designer webinar in a week or so. So you can have a look at that also. Any other questions? Migration tools are for System Builder. So if you're running System Builder, it allows you to migrate a group of forms to a DesignBase form from System Builder. Any other questions? Any other questions? No? Okay, thank you very much for your time. And again, if you have think of anything else that you want to talk to me about, you can call me at 877-889-9777, or info@designbase.com or rick@designbase.com. Thank you very much for your time and have a great day.